Here is the story about the Greek goddesses Demeter and Kore. This story is called The Joy of Spring. The kind goddess Demeter had a daughter whom she loved more than anything in the world. Her name was Kore. She was no longer a child, but she still loved to play and pick wildflowers in the meadow with her cousins. On just such a day, she came upon a beautiful narcissus flower and decided that she must add it to her bouquet. But when she began pulling on it, the ground began to shake, and then suddenly the earth split open, and Hades, the god of the underworld, appeared. When he saw the beautiful young maiden, he instantly fell in love with her and decided to take her back to his dark kingdom. Kore's friends were too far away to hear her crying for help. Hades dragged her kicking and screaming into his awaiting chariot, and then he ordered his 4 black horses to rapidly return home to the land of the dead. The goddess Demeter, sensing that something was not right, came rushing to the meadow, but her daughter was nowhere to be found. No one could tell her what had happened, because no one had seen. The goddess was beside herself with worry. Had someone taken her daughter? Was she in danger? She had to find her. As night began to fall, she lit a torch and continued her search. Night turned to day, then day back to night, and still no Kore. Too distressed to eat or sleep, she continued wandering for 9 days, looking for the slightest trace of her loved one. Then on the 10th day, a bit of luck came her way, when she ran into the 3-faced goddess Hecate. Protecting young maidens was one of Hecate's many powers. She had heard the cries for help. She was sure that Kore had been taken somewhere against her will, but where? She did not know. "You should ask Helios, the sun god," she suggested to Demeter. "As he spends so much of the day up in the sky, he must see everything that happens on earth." And so Demeter found Helios, the sun god, and from him she learned the terrible truth. The god Hades had captured her daughter and was forcing her to live with him in the land of the dead. Her child was now called Persephone, queen of the underworld. But there was more. Kore's own father, Zeus, had agreed to their marriage. Of course, the mighty Demeter was furious when she heard this news. "How dare he give away our daughter without asking me first?" Now, what you might not know is that the goddess Demeter had many names along with many powers. Fertility goddess was one of them. The people loved her because she made the crops grow. The people never went hungry because she always made sure that there was enough to eat. But in her anger and despair, she had forgotten all about the people. She was so grieved that she no longer planted the seeds. She no longer watered the crops. And when the time came to harvest, there was nothing to harvest. The farmland was dry and empty. "We are hungry," cried the people. "Something must be done," agreed the gods. The problem was that only Demeter had the gift of fertility. Only she could make the crops grow. As much of this was Zeus's fault, Zeus realized that he had to do something, and quickly. After all, wasn't he the king of the gods? He couldn't let everyone starve. So he sent messengers to apologize and coax Demeter to return to her duties. As you can imagine, this was not enough to convince the angry goddess. She refused to do anything until her daughter was returned to her. Seeing that he couldn't change her mind, Zeus finally gave in and sent another messenger ordering Hades to release Kori. Surprisingly, Hades agreed to let his wife go back to the light of the earth and heaven. But first, he wanted to offer her a farewell meal. Now Kori knew that she must never eat anything in the underworld. She knew that if she did, she could never hope to return to the world of the living. And since her capture, not one bite of food had passed her lips. But Hades was being so kind to her on her last day, and she was so happy to be returning home, that when Hades offered her a bowl full of pomegranate seeds, she carelessly ate 4 of them. Of course, once she had swallowed them, she was full of regret. But it was too late. And so the clever Hades was allowed to keep Queen Persephone with him for 4 months of every year, 1 month for each pomegranate seed she had eaten. The rest of the year, Persephone was permitted to become Kori again, returning to the world of the living. The goddess Demeter accepted this compromise. She was so happy to have her daughter back, at least part of the year. So, did Demeter bring back the seeds, the crops, and the harvest? Well, sort of. When her daughter returned home each year, there was great joy. She planted the seeds, she melted the frost, and new life could be seen everywhere. The people called this spring. Then, little by little, she made the sun shine brighter and brighter. She made the crops grow, and the people were happy to feel the warm heat on their faces. This was called summer. But around the moment that we call autumn, Demeter began thinking that her daughter would soon be obliged to return to the land of the dead. She became weary and disinterested in the crops. The trees began to lose their leaves, and a chill was felt in the damp air. The people were obliged to cover themselves with warmer clothes and quickly harvest their fields. And then, of course, winter came. Kori was obliged to become Queen Persephone once more. She clung to her mother as long as she could before Hades arrived in his swift chariot and forced her back to the underworld. During her daughter's 4-month absence, Demeter spent most of her time mourning. She allowed the weather to become icy cold. She let the wind blow and the snow fall. Of course, nothing grew. But at least she had mercifully already provided for the people. And that is how the 4 seasons began. No one knows exactly when, but one day the kind goddess decided to teach the people how to farm for themselves. The 4 seasons remained, however, and even today, farmers are obliged to abide by them. So, next time when you are shivering in the cold or basking in the summer sun, you might imagine the great joys and sorrows of the generous goddess Demeter.